Hi guys. These stories are very short, so I'm going to string a few of them together. These are from Bad Girls Throughout History, 100 Remarkable Women Who Changed the World. First is Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson, who lived in 1907 and died in 1964, was an American marine biologist, conservationist, and writer, best known for her seminally influential book, Silent Spring. Raised in rural Pennsylvania, Carson became a published writer at the age of 11, with her work appearing in the children's magazine St. Nicholas. She was in good company. Future famous writers printed there included F. Scott Fitzgerald, E. E. Cummings, and E. B. White. She was the second woman to be hired into the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries. Because she wasn't paid enough for this job, she pursued additional freelance work that led to the publication of her first two books, Under the Sea Wind and The Sea Around Us. These books garnered her multiple accolades and scientific credibility, which gave her the confidence to research the damaging effects of synthetic pesticides in widespread use after their creation by the military during World War II. The results of her research were detailed in Silent Spring. Despite family tragedies and personal health complications, Rachel Carson published Silent Spring in 1962 to much fanfare. Her critics, largely chemical manufacturing companies, decried her research by putting their own scientists on TV and attacking her personally, calling her a spinster and a communist. Nothing was more threatening than an educated professional woman in this post-World War II society, which demanded that all Rosie the Riveters return to the kitchen. Despite the harsh critical campaign against her, Carson was supported by the U.S. government and the larger scientific community. The Environmental Protection Agency was formed in 1970 as a direct result of the calls in Silent Spring, and in 2012 the book was designated a National Historic Chemical Landmark by the American Chemical Society. Next is Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler in 1914. She was an Austrian actress who started her film career in Germany and gained fame for the 1933 film Ecstasy, in which she had several nude scenes. She escaped a domineering arms dealer husband, Friedrich Mandel, and left Europe by boarding a cruise liner to America. After initially meeting Louis B. Mayer in London, Lamarr knew that he would also be traveling on this ship, and by the end of the cruise, she had a $500 a week contract with MGM Studios and a new name. Mayer reinvented her in America as Hedy Lamarr, the most beautiful woman in the world. While her new film career garnered attention, Lamarr was given mostly objectifying roles, so she eventually turned to inventing. Back when she was Mandel's trophy wife, she had often sat in on dinner party discussions with national leaders, including Stalin and Hitler. After gaining knowledge about German submarines torpedoing cruise liners and killing civilians, she used her free time between movies, working with her friend and composer George Antheil, to invent an alternative to existing radio wave technology. They gave the patent to the American government for free, but it was buried in the bureaucracy when the government shifted its focus after the bombing of Hiroshima. This technology was declassified, implemented in submarines in the 1960s, and it is the precursor to what we use now every day as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Hedy Lamarr died in 2000. sadly, she is still mostly known as being beautiful, even though she spoke multiple languages and was an absolutely brilliant inventor. Sad. Next is the story of Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan, born in 1921 and died in 2006, is often credited as the mother of the second wave feminist movement, with her 1963 book, The Feminine Mystique. Here we have my husband delivering coffee. This is my husband, Garth. Say hi to the children, Garth.
Hi.
With her 1963 book, The Feminine Mystique, Friedan dared to ask, now that women have had the right to vote for over 40 years, what else do they want to do? Born to Jewish immigrants in suburban Chicago, Friedan faced anti-Semitic treatment growing up, which later helped her identify with minority groups in her work. She became a journalist while in college at Smith. After graduation, she moved to New York City to write for labor news syndicates. Friedan married and had 3 children, and it was at her 15th Smith College reunion, where she surveyed her fellow co-eds turned housewives, that she started to put a name to that post-war middle-class woman's dissatisfaction that would be the subject of The Feminine Mystique. The book addressed the problem that has no name, that women who were educated, married, and raising children still found themselves unsatisfied. In 1966, Friedan co-founded and served as president of the National Organization for Women, which worked politically to give women fair opportunities and treatment in the workplace. The focus was to create a landscape where women could pursue a career outside the home. They also touched on issues of abortion, federal funding for child care services, poverty, and LGBT rights. In addition to the National Organization for Women, Friedan also founded the National Women's Political Caucus and the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. She was famously hot-headed, and her outspokenness led to her dismissal from 2 of the groups she helped found. Friedan wrote 6 more books, including memoirs and more nonfiction books on social issues. Next is the story of Barbara Walters. American broadcast journalist Barbara Walters, who was born in 1929, has a reputation for always getting the inside scoop through her compassionate ability to ask anyone anything. She was so good at it that she even wrote a book about it, the 1970 publication, How to Talk with Practically Anybody About Practically Anything. Walters became the first woman to officially co-author a network news program when she stepped into the role in 1976 on ABC Evening News. She had already served as a writer, segment producer, and segment host on The Today Show for over a decade. At ABC, she was a trailblazer for a new kind of news coverage dubbed personality journalism, which walked the line between hard news and human interest. This was a different approach from Marlene Sanders' interest in serious journalism, which was also breaking news barriers at the same time. Walters' strength was her soft approach. Her specialty was on-air exclusive interviews, meeting with royalty, spiritual leaders, controversial heads of state, high-profile convicts, and the 10 most fascinating people of the year. Struggling through many years of gender discrimination with co-hosts and producers, Walters went on to co-anchor 2020 for 15 years before creating and starring in her own show, The View, for nearly another decade. Her 40-year-long career, which is still going strong, invented a whole new category of careers for women and reshaped the form of television news itself. And that's no small legacy. Marlene Sanders, a serious leader in broadcast journalism. Marlene Sanders, born in 1931 and died in 2015, became the first female face on television news in 1964, when she temporarily filled in for an ailing Ron Cochran. In a field where most women were hired for secretarial work, Sanders repeatedly knocked against the glass ceiling behind the camera, working as a writer and associate producer at local New York news stations before becoming a correspondent for ABC News. There, she had to overcome being pigeonholed into hosting a segment called News on with the Women's Touch, covering feminine topics like food, fashion, and child rearing, before she got any hard news assignments that she wanted. Once she did, she covered the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy and became the first female field reporter to cover the Vietnam War in 1966. Through her hard work and fearless news coverage, she finally broke through and became the first female vice president of the ABC News division. From that position, she went on to produce Emmy award-winning documentaries covering underserved voices in areas ranging from women's liberation to elder care. Early in her life, she even had to defy her own mother's admonition that boys don't like girls who are too smart, because she excelled in school. Sanders knew that the traditional woman's role wasn't for her, and she made the world better for it. Lastly today, this is the story of Gloria Steinem. Gloria Steinem, born in 1934, is a feminist writer and all-around firecracker whose career started in the 60s when she went undercover as a bunny at the Playboy Club and penned the notorious expose, A Bunny's Tale, for Show magazine. She then became a staff writer at New York Magazine, where she published the article that made her a feminist leader, After Black Power, Women's Liberation. Steinem's career grew more focused when she covered an abortion hearing, and she joined forces with prominent figures like Betty Friedan and Bella Abzug to form the National Women's Political Caucus. In 1971, Steinem pioneered Ms. Magazine, a liberal feminist publication created, owned, and operated by women. Publishing at a time when women couldn't even get a credit card without a man's signature, it boldly covered previously forbidden territory, printing the names of women who acknowledged having an abortion when they were illegal, and featuring a woman with a bruised face on the cover of an issue about domestic violence. Of course, with more prominence comes more criticism, and Steinem was critiqued for everything from being too glamorous to be a feminist to focusing too much on self-help instead of social activism in her 1992 book, Revolution from Within, a book of self-esteem. Famously quoted as saying that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. In 2000, she did the most surprising thing when she married environmental and animal rights activist David Bale. In recent decades, she founded the Women's Media Center and uses every birthday as a fundraising event, even stating that she expects her funeral to be a fundraiser. Steinem built a 5-decade-long career on giving a voice to women's issues, and she continues to pursue her passion for social justice in her own groundbreaking way. That's it for now, guys. Have a great day.